entrance, and my Aunt Honey, Dean's mother, was standing up at the top of the stairs, and she was saying, "Lord, my baby's gone, my baby's gone. Who's going to be my baby now?" And I said, "Aunt Honey, I'll be your baby." Well, she had this hanky that had frills on the end of it. I reached over and grabbed her hand and I said, "And honey, I'll be your baby." Well, she broke my heart. She said, "You can't be my baby. You're a quitter." Well, all this comes back from me trying to play football with Dean, junior Bantam football. The first couple of weeks of practice was okay, and then we had a scrimmage, and I got hit in my mouth and tasted my blood, and I quit the team. And my mother was coming in the door at this time when Aunt Honey said, "You can't be my baby, you're a quitter." And I said, "I hate God." And mother said, "Eugene, what did my baby say?" I said, "I hate God." She says, "Now, baby, you don't mean that." I say, "Yes, I do." She said, "You don't mean that. You didn't want Dean to suffer. You didn't know what kind of pain he was in. And besides that, God took Dean because he needed him more than we did." And I said, "Well, why didn't he take some old person? Dean hadn't even lived yet." And I just remembered that because a few years later, I lost my mother, and I remembered, you know, maybe God needed her more than I did. And I've always remembered that. And there's been some things in my life. I know we talked about this earlier, but no one knows this, but I nearly drowned 3 times. And each time, my cousin Dean would be there to tell me that it's okay. He's waiting for me to come in this whirlpool. And the first time was at Lincoln Elementary School. The second time was when I joined the Navy. And the third time was here at a place called Washington Park. And I'd be in this whirlpool going down, and it seemed like at the end of the whirlpool, this door began to open and this light would shine through. And the next thing I know, my kids that I went to school with the first time is pumping water out of me. The only thing they knew was Johnny Weissmuller as Tarzan or whatnot, but they brought me out of that. The second time, the chief petty officer hooked me and pulled me out of the water in the Navy. And the last time was at Washington Park Recreation Center, where the lifeguard pulled me out of the water. We were playing water volleyball, but I slipped and went under. And see, nobody knows that about me. And so even I wonder sometime while I'm still here. But my spirituality, I've always believed in my God. And in 1956, the movie The 10th Commandments came out. And that also made me believe in my higher power more.
The kind of work you're doing now, Gene, the interventions that you do you have a feeling that that is a calling from God, that you can make a difference in people's lives?
I've had some ups and downs in my life, and while I played ball, I never touched a drug, but I've had back operations and neck surgeries, and I got involved with drugs, and I did them for almost 2.5 to 3 years. In '86, I nearly killed my wife, and we've been together 38 years. We've never really had any arguments. I've never raised my hand to hurt her or something, but in '86, I nearly killed her under the influence of the drug. And when they arrested me, they took me to the city jail and put me in this jail cell up on the 3rd floor where I could look out and see the shrine of Mother Cabrini. And they said that my glasses had fallen off at home, and I had cried so hard that my eyes were almost completely shut. Well, I went to sleep for about 15 to 20 minutes, maybe a half hour at the most. And when I woke up, the people that loved me the most had come to that jail cell. And when I say come to the jail cell, as clear as I'm looking at you now, my mother stood here, my father stood here, Mr. Schubart stood here, Auntie Carolyn was here. Well, Mr. Schubart and my father were over 6 feet tall, and they turned and looked up to their right slightly. And I said to myself, what can they be looking at? This room is so small. What? And I turned, Carol, and I began to look at this white creamy robe. And as I got up to the shoulder, I began to see this dark brown satin silky looking hair. And I looked back at my mother, and her lips weren't moving, but she said, "See, I told you everything's going to be okay." And I leaned out and I looked up again. And at this time, this being turned his head and looked down at me, and I saw this beautiful, neatly trimmed beard. I saw those big brown marble eyes which pierced through me. And he didn't say a word. But if you've ever gotten out of a shower or a swimming pool where you've got the chills, where you quivered, well, that vibration walked from the tip of my toes to the top of my head. And I have not had a drink of alcohol or done a drug since that. But I always question, what is it about me that's so important? He brought my loved ones back, and he even came into that room to let me know that he didn't make joke, and he was going to give me another chance. You're talking about working with alcoholic and drug addicts. There was something when I went to look for a job, and I talked to Dr. William D. Lipo at Valley Hope. He heard my story, and he said, "You've gained some spirituality." And I just shared with him, I've always believed in my God. But no one in pro football or around town knew that I hadn't gotten my GED yet. And so at the age of 50, when Dr. Lipo asked me to go back and get the GED, that they would train me to be a counselor, I lied to him. I was never so happy to leave Valley Hope as I was at that time. But when I got back down to the lady that got me the interview, she was out of her seat out to tell me, "Oh, Dr. Lipo, he just fell in love with you. He said that you're going to go back to school and he's going to train you to be a counselor." And even today, I said, if you would have asked me back then what I would be doing, it sure wouldn't be a counselor. But my God did something to me, made me in my mind a better man, because I actually care more for people. And I see how easy it is for us to fall into that trap of addiction because we never have the courage to ask anyone for help. You have problems, what do? You go grab a bottle of beer. You have problems, what do? You smoke a joint, what do? You do marijuana. You do these drugs, but you don't realize after that wears off, you're going to be in the same state of mind. So that means you're going to have to start it over again. I did it, and it made me do something that I still regret today. But one thing I do love is that I believe God gave me the tools to go back to school, to learn, and to be able to help these people and let them know that I am no better than them. But what you have to do is believe in yourself and know what's right and wrong.
I think hearing your story, Gene, I would say that Gene Mingo is not a quitter. I think your aunt was wrong. I think you have come back. I think you've made a real difference in people's lives. And I think the last question I'd like to ask you today is just simply, how do you want people to remember you?
If I can get rid of all the, what can I say, all the problems I caused myself, and go back to 64 or up to 86, just remember that he made a change in his life, that he has tried to reach out to people, that he wants to be respected, he wants to be loved, and he also wants to be remembered that during his pro football career or whatever, he did the best he could. And now as an alcohol and drug counselor, I will continue to do the best I can to help people realize that they can change their lives if they want to put the work into it.
Great, Gene. I think the world is a better place because you're here.
I appreciate it, and I hope others do.